Hi, everybody. I am Andra Annette, and welcome to this week's session of Building Community. And today, while building my own community, I came across a fabulous man. So, Hinesh Chauhan, and I probably didn't say that correct, is an interesting man, and I think you'll agree with me. So, he's a business and management consultant, and he helps organizations really build their leadership skills and wellness and really create the changes that the companies want to see and the people want to see. So, please help me welcome him. Hi, Hinesh. I'm so excited to see you.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an honor to have you. So when we were talking, I just got this overwhelming sense of compassion from you. And I don't hear that as much today as we like to believe. I don't sense that and pick up on that in just people on a day-to-day basis. So I was very inspired by you, and there's not that many people that really do that for me. So thank you for that. But I know that you were in the army, and I know you coach divorced dads, which is difficult too. But you're a man of many things. I know that you do a lot of non-for-profit and so much more in your day to day. And when you were telling me about your dreams and your aspirations, I kind of sensed that you were going to see them come to fruition.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. I know it. And that's what drives me is seeing what I have over my life experience, what I've had to experience and growing through those things and through everything I've done and everything that I do, it's about seeking the understanding. It's to the catalyst for everything, the root cause and helping others overcome that. And for myself, it has been a path of overcoming several challenges and just a drive to be able to leverage my abilities to help others create the change they want to see, because I think we need it now more than any other time in history.
Oh, absolutely. So I know that you spoke of a lot of not-for-profit things, but you went into the army very young. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting about the motivation that caused me to join the army was I was 16. I joined at 17, but at 16, I learned that the Canadian Army would send me to this beautiful place in Canada called Chilliwack, British Columbia, teach me how to how to use explosives as a combat engineer, train me, feed me, house me, pay me. And I just thought, hey, this is a great opportunity. And home life wasn't the greatest. I thought it would just be this great escape and have all these other advantages. And then what came of it was I was thinking I'd do it for 2 to 4 years on a part-time basis, and I turned into a full-time gig after um, doing 2 years of engineering, my heart not really into it at university. And after my second year being sent on my junior leadership course, which I didn't want, I was forced into it because I had already lined up a different gig that summer working at a cadet camp in Ottawa. And instead I was sent to Petawawa. And at the end of it, the army was looking for reservists to volunteer to go to Kosovo. We had just joined the NATO mission in Kosovo and thought, hey, I'm going to throw my hand up and go over it. And ended up doing a lot of landmine clearance, rebuilt schools, uh, rebuilt bridges, roads, and just saw this really devastated place. And it was really, really fulfilling to be able to contribute in that way. And that drove me to other things, to really taking advantage of what the army provides in terms of leadership training, as the years went on, and doing a master's in management after an economics degree, doing it at night while working full time. I was using the army as my testing ground for leadership as a lab. but it gave me so much in terms of understanding people and work ethic and planning, risk management, so many skills that I could just keep going on about.
Do you think that is what led you to seeing, you described seeing that devastation and being able to rebuild, which is an amazing thing to be a part of. Do you think that's why you're so passionate now about building? Because you spoke of housing that you were planning on.
Yeah. It, after full-time service, I moved into our federal public service, and getting Canadians value for money was something I took a lot of pride in doing, and understanding what the government did, what it provided, why it provided what it did or does, and meeting with stakeholders and understanding challenges. And as time went on, I just really took the time to understand what the challenges were, how our tax dollars are best spent, what communities or what initiatives need that support. And I think there's always been this drive in me to do something that's meaningful. I want to wake up every day knowing that I'm making an impact and not just making money for some corporation. So where that comes from, probably those values came from my parents as well. They immigrated here. They came from very limited means, and just living in a family that had limited means, understanding other challenges socioeconomically. I just became really curious about it, and what I studied and what I read. I don't read fiction. I read nonfiction because I just have this immense thirst. And part of that is looking at patterns over history to understand why we are where we are. So looking at that, looking at the trends going forward, looking at how the marginalized segments of our population and other initiatives that lack grit or the ability to really deliver on, then drove me into that space. So having overseen Canada's infrastructure stimulus programs, the last two rounds at the federal level, looking at how certain initiatives provide good to the country and where those things are lacking, have moved me into the space of desiring to change or create solutions for affordable housing or housing in general, because we've been doing things the same way for decades.
Mm.
There's time to look at how we do differently. How can we build better, faster, stronger, cheaper dwellings to resolve our crisis? Because even the initiatives that are coming out, for example, there's an initiative right now where post World War II housing, the designs established, getting the approvals to create faster housing, it's not getting traction. And we have to ask ourselves why. And my question is always follow the money. When you've got a dwelling or a design that doesn't need approvals, is going to pay less property taxes, requires less materials, where's the incentive for industry to actually step in? Municipalities are losing revenue with these smaller design and a lack of permitting approvals that are required. Not that they're not required, that you don't have to go through the standard planning process where they collect these fees. So why would anybody be incentivized to build smaller housing faster to solve the crisis? There's just no incentive. So we have to look at that and think of, how can we do this differently? How can we overcome the system to provide the stock and solve this problem? So that's something I'd like to share to everybody is scratch your head and ask, why are all these initiatives being put out, these accelerated housing funds, these new initiatives to solve the crisis, but there's no results? And looking at that and understanding systematic challenges with governments, because their performance metrics, the targets, they don't set the targets that we will do this by this time. We are going to support this industry or these communities, and really dig into why we're not achieving the results. No one's really asking these hard questions or designing the programs and initiatives so that they're guaranteed to be successful.
I don't know if it's so much that they're not asking the questions or they just don't. I think that sometimes politics is a little misguided. And by that, I mean they know exactly where the money is and they know exactly where it needs to go. It's just getting A to cross that bridge to B. And a lot of times they find other things that they feel is more important. And so they allocate it there. And does that provide housing? Does that help with the marginalization? No, it does not. But it's not on their high radar yet. So um the things that you're talking about are amazing. And I think in a population right now that is abundant in homelessness, we need to look at something and we need to look at change. But I find in politics that they tend to focus on a specific area to of the things that they are doing rather than the things over here that they're not doing that really need that attention. I've been talking with my girlfriends on shows and we were talking about the broken foster care system. And this is a recurring situation. 4,600 kids go homeless and age out every year. And so we're talking about the homelessness on the street, but there are no systems in place for these kids. So knowing that these 4,600 kids are going to go homeless every year, why are we not educating them in the middle, the beginning, the middle, and the end to give them skills like you've received, right? From services and stuff, because they certainly have the wherewithal for those services to help them and educate them and then bring them back into the system to help people like them. So there's definitely a lack of support and a lack of people in those roles that really understand some of the traumas and things that these children are going to. So who better to serve the next generation than the people that are in that situation? So I think that money, to say that we are going to help the marginalized people and that we care is one thing on paper, but
Hmm.
to see people putting in the footwork is another story, and I don't see that too much. So
No,
I work
I
for
agree.
the city, not necessarily the government at the higher levels, but I just don't see those changes. And I think people are tired of waiting for those changes. And it takes people like you who are really advocating for those people. You were in the service and now you're advocating for veterans. And who better to do that? Because you know what your life is like now because of it, but what an important part of your life that was, how you
Mhm.
helped others, how they helped you. And a lot of them come home and they too can't find a job, homeless. So, and they have traumas from serving and nobody's serving them. So we need to ask those questions, certainly, Hinesh.
We do, and it's really about empowering people. It's not just giving them the fish. It's teaching them how to fish and looking at the socioeconomic impacts of teens or young adults that age out of the system and no longer get the support that they once had. It's providing them with that support, as you said, that's needed so that they can launch and not become a burden on society. Because at the end of the day, it's the return on investment is quite high if you provide that support and that help at that front end, because they don't become a drain on the system, and then they don't also create generational impacts through passing that on to their kids.
Well, I mean, it just, for me, when I was looking at those numbers, for me, that was staggering because I said, I don't understand because they're being helped by a system. Where is the education? Because if you know someone's going to age out by the age of 21 and they come to you at 16, that gives you even a 5-year window to show them how to provide for themselves, give them some educational tools so they are employable, so they can afford housing, or connect them to housing services that will help them. Something. It's like going home one day and your mother closing the door and saying, "Sorry, you're 21, no more here."
That's it.
So, and I think that children, especially that have been through so many other traumas, otherwise they wouldn't be in that system, that we're lacking in a very big way. Not just in their education, not just in the homelessness and the housing, but we're really, politics has been become more about blue and red and not about the people, regardless of where they are. It doesn't matter what party you're in. We're supposed to all be for the same party, the human
Yeah,
party.
that's
So
it.
so that's where I kind of get lost in that. But I love what you're doing, and I loved the housing that you were talking about. So can you share that with our audience? Because I was just like stumped. I was like, really? And listening to you.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of components to it. It's not just about new construction methodology, which is using carbon negative components. So how can you build something that is pest resistant, is climate resistant, is mildew, water resistant, is using new materials instead of timber framed housing that has a much lower life expectancy. It's using blocks of autoclaved aerated concrete with biochar, which makes it carbon negative, or using a different solution with a proponent I'm working with that takes materials out of a landfill to create modular components of the house where it can be built faster. And these pieces are made in a factory, so it's controlled. So you get a very high quality of material that creates a life expectancy of a dwelling for 150 years. So that's one piece. The other piece, which is taking a look at, so let me just back up a little. When I decided to, I left the government and I knew the time would come where pushing rope uphill would break me. And it got to that point. I remember that day it happened and said, okay, I had a chat with my boss saying, I don't think I can do this anymore. And in a very serendipitous way, got two offers from the private sector the same week. It just this beautiful thing to then shift into this consulting role, working with multiple government organizations to get can make a greater impact. And that was short lived as well because I realized I want to create something on my own, which is what I'm working on. And after my brother's suicide, who's also a soldier, um, started digging into stats, understanding like why, how does this come to be? What are the stats? Looking at understanding that the rate of suicide for a divorced dad is 9 times higher than that of a woman. And generally, it's 4 times higher. The rate of suicide for men is 4 times higher. And looking at trends in illness post COVID, just increased segregation. There's more mental illness, more physical illness, and we can get
Mm.
into movement and nutrition, which plays such a big part. But really, the low hanging fruit is connection, is increased connection, and that's COVID really ruined this for our society. And starting to look at all these other aspects of how we live our lives and realize, okay, wait a minute. We outsource our child rearing until kids are school aged, and then they're really in front of the screen for the other time. We've got both parents struggling to make ends meet. We we get rid of our grandparents or parents to go to retirement residences or assisted living facilities, and you don't have that transfer of values from generation to generation within a house or within a family. You don't have the grandparents helping with the child rearing and alleviating that pressure. You don't have them providing support, wisdom, nor do we've got decreased participation in houses of worship where you have your elders, you've got the community overlooking you. When you've got challenges, you have that support. And now we've got a divorce rate that's climbing, and we're at 50%. Half of marriages fail, half. And it's getting worse. So how do you make it affordable? How do you increase connection? How do you get that support? And how do you make it better? Well, let's look at multi-generational homes. And this is something that I'm working to bring back, but in a different way, not just piling in multi-generations into one house, but what if you can make it where there's some sort of segregation and privacy and have a centralized main component of the house where everyone can gather and build it in a way, small things like centralizing all the mechanical systems for the home so that the house later on can be divided when the grandparents move into those facilities or pass away and rent out those sections of the house, but where they don't have access. So looking at different configurations of housing to increase the connection, the collaboration, the community, improve wellness, improve just all outcomes for families and setting them up for success. And imagine if you've got on a standard parcel of land, a house that can house multi-generations where everyone's contributing financially. The cost of living decreases. Maybe both parents don't have to work. One person can stay home and raise their own kids and decrease that pressure. We've shifted so much for in the last 3 or 4 decades from what actually worked really well and where we had a really high quality standard of living. And now future generations will not have that same level of wealth, same level of wellness and well-being. It's we're regressing. And if that doesn't raise red flags,
We
that's
we
a
we
concern.
really are, especially in the wellness segment. So I know that post-COVID people are more accountable for their wellness, but there's more health gurus online than ever before, and the disease rate is so much higher than it's ever been before. There's more obesity, more diabetes, more heart disease with these people online. So we do need to increase that connectivity, certainly. That's kind of what I'm trying to do with my shows. They're all different shows about different things, and I'm meeting people because I think that connection is everything. When I was growing up, it was we were certainly poor. We didn't looking at it now, I see that. Back then I just felt like a regular child, just like everybody else in the neighborhood. But we were very supported by the community. It was a different world. And people growing up in the Bronx, there was that strength among us. So everybody watched each other's children. Nobody would think twice about grabbing me by the scruff of the neck and saying, "Ann, control your daughter." I found her down the street, or because everybody took care of everybody. And I remember living in the Bronx, and maybe I was 6 years old at the time, and it was midnight, and we were all out down the street at a block party or at the church at a fair, and then when we moved, my mother was suddenly worried about the time I came home, and I was like, "What are you kidding me? I'm so much older than I was then. What's going on, Ma?" So, but it was definitely a community, and didn't see that for a while. And I mean, we had PAL where the cops came into the communities and did sports with us. It was the Police Benevolence Association, and they blocked off streets for us where we had music and everybody cooked and brought their own food, and we ate together. We broke bread together, and it was a different time. And then during COVID, I was on the front lines, and I saw that community come back. Unfortunately, it was because of a trauma, a traumatic situation. But they did all come together. Everybody was in out their windows, just like they were before, whistling for us. And people actually went into their businesses, even though they were closed, to cook for the hospital staff. We were fed every day. There was food lined up, and we had donations, and people donated sneakers. Keep those nurses walking. We we saw so much support. The mayor came in to bring us food. So after work, we wouldn't have to go food shopping, toilet paper, all those things you couldn't get online. It was ridiculous to get. They were bringing them into us to say thank you. But it was a community, and they knew we had their back, and we knew they had ours. And those are the kind of connections that we need to have again, real, genuine connections, not the superficial that you
Mhm.
connect because of a business interaction or something like that. But you get to know what's important to the other person, what roles they're working on, how you can really help, because that's what makes the difference. We're all trying to get to a certain place in life, right? So if you can take someone's hand and bring them with you, if they're going that way, why not?
Yes. That's it. It really does take a village. And there's a saying that I really like. There's several sayings that I really like, but one of them is, well, first is, a rising tide lifts all boats, and trying to bring everyone up together collectively. But the other one is, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And it's about mobilizing people, about being a leader wherever you are to create that connection, that community, because it can happen. It takes, these conversations are so important. What you're doing is so impactful and so great. And you do so many different streams of improvement, and these conversations matter because whether it's at home, whether it's in the community, whether it's at work, it's all the same. It's having that real connection. And this is what I do on my management consulting side, is although we offer a full spectrum of services for every business, the focus is really on keeping it simple and significant. You can do that just by being real, by being a good leader, by actually caring about what your people say and want, because they're the ones that are doing the work on the day-to-day basis, whether it's a service industry or manufacturing industry. It's all the same principles. And you create this wonderful continual improvement cycle organically just by having real dialogue and being open to correcting whatever you're doing as that senior leader, CEO, anyone in the C-suite. And then when you present that humility, your people are happier. They want to say, you get better output, your organization succeeds. And it can be done in a really fast way without complicated change management practices or complicated risk management practices. It's all organic and simple. And then if people are happier at work, they're happier at home. And it's
Definitely.
just this cascading effect everywhere. Is be good, and care about the people around you.
My one of my employees is always reaching out to me to tell me she's out of work. I was I was at my desk the other day and I just started laughing. I said, "Are you really complaining you don't have enough work to do?" But she's so endearing, and she did this whole review about what it's like to work for Andra Annette. And
There you
I got so teary-eyed just listening to her, and I was like, wow, that's really nice. So I felt like I was doing my job, because
I
I've
would
been
say
on the
so.
other end and it hasn't always been so well. So, but it is so important in every aspect of our lives, and
That's a
you're a
testament
big
to you.
advocate. So there are things that like bother me. So I'm very selective about the shows I do. So I just started one, My Journey Home, and that's going to be my story because people always say you don't understand, it's not happening to you. So I'm going to go down that road with them so they can't say that to me ever again because there's very little that hasn't happened to me. So um but I smile because it's about those challenges and things that you've overcome. I'm doing another one with a speech pathologist who I love, and we had a real conversation yesterday about labels and that even though they may be effective for that diagnose, what we're setting our children up for because you're telling them very early on that they're different. And it's so, and in a bad way, you're telling them because it is okay to be different. That's what makes everybody human, that we are different. But you're characterizing them, they're not like everybody else, or they don't fit in. And that sends a very real message to that child. And I think it's a bad message. So we were talking about how we can educate people. So we're going to get some of the family to talk to us and really see what would serve them because we're speaking from our point of view and we don't know what it's like for them. I mean, some of these families are still dealing with, they had the thoughts of having a well child, and now that is not going to play out quite the way they planned, and that grief that they're going through. How can we, because it's an imagined loss, right? So it's not imagined, it's very real, but it's a perceived loss, and that's what they feel. So how we can get them that help. I met with someone else who is autistic, and he said to me, they don't get to put me in a box. I said, no, they do not. I said,
That's a
I'd love to have you on my show. And he was so intelligent because they're so savant in so many other areas. And just speaking with him did my heart so well. So he's going to be the next president. And I said, oh, thank God, finally new blood in the White House.
yes.
Right. And so, yeah. So we're doing all kinds of shows. I do one about real life of the entrepreneurs, what it's really like, that it's not easy and it's work, but if you love it, keep going.
That's it.
So I think I have like 9 different shows going now. It keeps me very
Wow.
busy.
I bet it must keep you really busy. I when you first told me that, I just couldn't even fathom how you keep that straight along with all the other work that you do. So hats off to you to be
Yeah,
able to
I'm
do that,
starting one with the nurse.
to be able to showcase people and show that there's people out here doing great things, and what you're doing, what they're doing, being able to share that this is what matters, this is what has to be, not has to be done, but this is what benefits us. And so if I think it motivates and inspires people to see that, okay, well, they're doing it, I can do it. And to hear about an entrepreneur's journey and realize, yeah, okay, it's hard. It's going to be hard at the beginning. And if you do it right and set yourself up to be able to grow scale and get right stakeholders or ecosystem partners to link arms with you, the impact you can make is so rewarding. So
I
thank
need
you.
a few more stakeholders, but I'm working on that. But you know what it is too? I think that there's a lot of people that are very lonely, that don't have that family, that don't have those connections. And they
Mm,
are online looking for those connections and they just really don't want to. Or they might be going through something in their life and might not have that person to talk to.
mm,
So I'm hoping that they'll see someone on my show that they'll connect with and they'll say, well, I'm going through that problem right now and maybe she can help me. But it gives them hope because a lot of the people that are out here that are doing things, and people out here are doing amazing things, and you can turn on any channel today and hear nothing but bad. So I'm trying to kind of drown that out in my own way. And, you know, I think these people are doing such amazing thing, but a lot of people that are out here doing these things have gotten through so many things in their own lives. And that's
mm.
what brings them out to help because they have been in that situation and they know exactly what it's like. They know what that pain's like. They know that what it's like to be alone and feel like you don't have an answer. And they've turned those traumas into something really amazing and they come forward to help. And that's one of the best things that a human being can do for another person is give them their time. So I really love it. I love meeting people like you. I love what you're doing. I love this whole idea of this affordable housing too, right? We did say affordable.
Affordable, yeah, affordable multi-generational homes that will just create so many benefits. So yes, thank you.
They just sold a house for something like $200 million in California.
Mm,
It was on the news this morning, and I couldn't even fathom paying that much for a house, whether you had the money or not. I couldn't fathom what would possess somebody to spend that kind of money, even if you didn't have money, what that could do for the people that I help. you know, I mean, there's so many problems with food insecurities and everything like that. Even if I had that money, I wouldn't put it there.
mhm. I agree. I agree. I think about this all the time in terms of where our tax dollars go, people with immense wealth, what they're doing, how we send out foreign aid and don't solve the problems in our own backyard. It's solvable. It really is. And it's about economic interests. And who funds what campaigns are funded, and then on an individual level, just this um I guess to a degree, it's selfishness where you're not looking around, understanding what else is going on. You're just living in your happy bubble and living in excess and may think, okay, well, I'm employing people to manage my $200 million house. So maybe that's their contribution to alleviating some challenges just by being able to employ people. But I wish there was the stronger desire to use what people have to support others. And there are, again, incentives. It's all about incentives, using sticks, not carrots. So how can, or sorry, using carrots, not sticks. And how can you incentivize people? And I'm working with the largest estate planning law firm in the US to create something called cause-based sustainable giving, where we help companies align their culture and to be able to create a foundation for a cause that they believe in. So not only does it align the business to and everybody in it to the same values, but is making community impacts. And the incentive there is being able to lessen the tax burden, but then using what would go out in taxes to go out in creating meaningful impact within their community and to the cause that they truly support, because that's the culture within the organization. And then that breeds just this wonderful work
Pay it
culture.
forward.
We'll
Pay it forward.
realize that, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think there's a shift, as we talk about this more, and as different organizations start taking steps to cause good, I think others will be looking around and will be motivated out of guilt or shame to make a change. So I'm hopeful, and as you said, hope is really important. So a few years ago, I think I was starting to lose faith in humanity, and it's shifted because as I go out on my mission, which I'm relatively new into, the the wonderful, amazing humans I get to connect with, like you and others, as I share my mission and my vision and purpose, is bringing the right people into my world. So that's really restored my faith in humanity, and I'm thinking and seeing that the pendulum's starting to swing in the other direction. So we're headed into a time where people want to create positive change.
I think there's more people looking to create for themselves too. I think that's a big shift post COVID. I think so many people saw how quickly whatever they had could be lost, the jobs and so much more, and they want more stability, and they know that if they're in the driver's seat, they have a better chance at that. And I think that's a wonderful thing too. So if you could share one insightful piece of advice with our audience, what would that be?
And just to quickly comment on what you said, that's exactly part of my motivation to do what I'm doing, is to create that legacy of autonomy for myself and my kids, so that we're not reliant on anyone, because I see this major shift happening and want to decouple us from that to have that freedom and peace of mind. The one thing I share is, if you don't know your neighbors, if you can't tell me, any personal information about your neighbor, then I think that's a sign that you should make an effort to get to know your neighbors. Start building your own community, start creating that support network and that positive ripple effect. By you're outside, you see your neighbor cutting the grass, like, go put a cold beer at the line so that they see it and they stop and you guys can share a drink. Could be a cold bottle of water, anything. I'm just using it as an example. I don't want to promote alcohol and drinking. All this to say is make the effort to create that connection, because it really starts there. And something I didn't realize, not having extended family growing up, how much I wanted to have that. And I've created that in my community. I'm very close with my neighbors, and I did just that. Was new neighbors moved in, invite them over, or neighbor was cutting the grass, just staked a beer there. He stopped and we shared a moment, got to know each other, and have become really close friends, where my car had to get dropped off to the mechanic. My neighbor will drive me over. I'm headed to the airport for business, and my cat's out. I just text one of my neighbors who have keys saying, "Hey, the cat's out. Can you let him in when he's ready?" And it's this beautiful community, extended family. I really see it as family, and
That's how it should be.
it should be. And create your own village.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. So where can people find you? Where's the best way to get in touch with you?
They can find me across social media as Hinesh Chauhan or under Decent Divorced Dads. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or they can go to my decentdivorceddads.com, or they can go to
Say
Evolution.
that again, because it sounds like you're saying decent divorced dads.
Exactly what I'm saying. Decent
Oh, okay.
Dad.
Okay.
And message me there. But LinkedIn will probably be a place that I see it first. So let's start with that.
That's where I found you.
Yes, that's right.
So I want to thank you for coming in. I just want you to hang out for a second. And I want to
Sure.
thank the audience for tuning in. As always, this is Andra Annette with Hinesh Chauhan. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks, Andrew.